Are you needing some help with the design a blog post card from freeCodeCamp? If so, this is the video to watch. My name's Rob. I'm with freeCodeCamp, and I am a coding instructor where I try to help you navigate through some of these exercises because I get it. I understand that it's tough, especially if you're trying to learn new material. And nothing is more frustrating than getting stopped and trying to find the answer. So that's why I'm going through a lot of these video series, helping you with these labs and these exercises that they do give you. Again, anything that you can do to help us would be to comment on the video as well as like the video, because that really helps out the YouTube algorithm, making sure that we're doing every single thing that we can in order to get this video shown to more people. So that's what you can do. It's free, just takes 1 second to do. Anyways, let's go ahead and dive in and see what we're actually going to do with this and see what we can learn. All right, let's move on. Okay, so this is my first time going through this project. I don't know what it's all about, but I am going to click on this thing here to see what we're actually trying to build. Sometimes it turns out this is exactly what it looks like. And what I'm also noticing is sometimes it doesn't look anything like it because it expects you to go a little bit more into depth as far as the styling goes. But it does look nice little business card. I mean, we kind of see this all around the web, nice rounded corners, an image that's contained inside the parent. It looks like maybe some H2 tags are on here as well, and a paragraph tag and a button that looks really nice. So hopefully we can go through some of these user stories on here and complete the tasks that were asked. Now, the way that I'm going to have this video out, just like I do in all my others, is I'm going to go through all these user stories and I'm not going to test them out. However, you are able to test them out as we go along. You can pause the video, hit the run button, and the run button that I'm talking about is run the test. And once you get all of the tests complete, then you'll be able to go ahead and say, hey, yeah, submit my work. So we're going to go through all these. They'll be chaptered out down below the video. So let's go ahead and get started with user story number 1. Okay, so user story number 1, it says that you should have a div element here. So I'm going to go ahead and make a div. And I'm always telling students that I teach, whenever we're creating a tag, let's go ahead and create the closing tag so we don't forget. And then we can put whatever we want inside of here. For user story number 1, it says it needs to have a class name here of blog post card. Now, any freeCodeCamp has something here in gray where it's blocked off. It is expecting that name exactly on how it's spelled. I do get comments on other videos as well as students that are surprised if we get a capital B in here and it fails a test. So please make sure, we always say syntax matters. And so make sure that these things are exactly as they are spelled. So this is going to contain all of our cards and we should be good to go for user story number 1. User story number 2, it says that within the blog post card div, we should have an image element with a valid alt attribute and the class of post image. It also provides us with something that we would want to use for the source. And I think that's it for user story number 2. So it seems pretty easy. On here, it says we need to have an image. So that's going to be an image tag. Now, image tags we've learned in the past are void elements, meaning that they don't get a closing tag. But I am going to put the greater than sign here to make it an image tag that is complete for sure. So the first thing is the alt. Again, I don't know what kind of picture this is. I'm just going to put picture in here. The alt tag is used to help out screen readers describe things as it's coming across it. And then you can also see over here in the browser preview, I'm getting this little broken image because I'm missing the source. I also get the alternative text that we put down here. So that way, in the case of maybe the image is moved from a different server, we can at least display text on there on what it should be. Okay. And that's what it's asking for the alt. Next is going to be the source. So we want the src. We want to set that equal to, and then let's go ahead and grab this. And then I'm going to go ahead and paste it here. Next, it does say that it needs a class name. So I'm going to give it a class. I'm going to set that to post img and close off the quotes there. Okay. Now, those are the 3 attributes that are added here. And hopefully we can see it okay here on the screen without it moving to the next line. But usually these URLs are lengthy and I'm not sure why. Oh, I forgot the G on here to get the photo. And you can see how it is blown out of proportion here. And hopefully we're going to be containing it here shortly with some styling. All right. Moving on to the next user story. User story number 3 of designing a blog post card with freeCodeCamp. It states on here that we should have a div with a class of post content within this blog post card. Go ahead and add an H2 element, a paragraph element, and then an anchor element that says read more. Okay. Let's go ahead and just break this thing down. That's what I typically like to do here. And I need it to be within the blog post card. Okay. Notice that we already have an image in there, and I'm able to click on that little triangle thing here to bring it up and down to collapse the code there. And I need this to be inside of the div of the blog post card. So it says, hey, let's go ahead and add another div and have that div have a class name of post content. So I'm just going to go ahead and do opening and closing tags here. And I'm going to hit the enter key. I do want to add the class before I forget. Let me go ahead and do that. We'll do class. We're going to set that equal to content. So that satisfies this very first part here. Next, it says inside this div, let's go ahead and add an H2 element. So I'm going to come down here and we're going to do an H2. Again, I'm doing opening and closing tags because I don't want to forget. And then inside here, we're going to do the post title. Now, I'm going to grab the information that we have from up here, and I'm just going to grab that H2 where it says learn web development in 2024. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that there. And we don't necessarily see it on the screen because it refreshes. So we have to scroll down here in order to see it, but it's there. Next on here, it says we want a paragraph element. But before I move on, let me just double check I did this correctly. This needs to be a class name of post title. After the H2, let's go ahead and do the paragraph tag next. So we're going to do the paragraph. It needs to have a class name of post excerpt. And then as far as what goes on there for the text in between, it's a paragraph tag. Let's see what they wrote. And I'm going to do the exact same thing. So let's go ahead and paste that on there. And again, we can take a look here at the screen, and we do have our nice little paragraph tag. The last thing that we want to put on here is the anchor tag. And so let's go ahead and do the anchor tag. And the text in between, it says, and then as far as the goes, I don't know if it wants us to go anywhere, but we will go ahead and add a class. We're going to set that equal to read-more. And then as far as the goes, until it tells us differently, I'm just going to put a hashtag in there. And so I'm just going to do href and then the hashtag. So that way it won't really do anything. And if we scroll down here, we see the read more. So it looks like we're going to be styling these things here. Style this to look like a button. So let's see what we have to do next. All right, so before we're able to add styling, because we're finally at the point here for that user story number 4, for us to use styling. And this is where a lot of people might get stuck because they may be adding some styling to their style sheet, but they're not seeing anything happen. And shame on freeCodeCamp for not making this like a little step, or maybe making it more well known, because they do put this little note on here that says, please be sure that you link your style sheet. And so if you don't know what that means, thing that I always tell my students to do, just do a Google search on linking style sheet to HTML document, and then throw in the keyword W3 schools. And this is where you will most likely end up, which is the how to add CSS. The one that we want is the external CSS. There's 3 ways to add CSS: internal, inline, and then external. And this is where we link a page. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this to my clipboard. That's exactly what I want to do. And things that we want to take note of, it needs to go inside of the head tags. So that's the key part to this. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to go below the title. I'm still inside of the head, and I'm going to go ahead and paste. Now, just because we pasted this doesn't mean that it's actually working, because what I would like to do, or what I always tell my students to do, is test things out, put some styling on here, and see if they're linked properly. It's a real quick check. And what I typically do is I'll target the body. I'll do a background color, and I set it to something that I can see. I'll do pink, and I don't see any pink. And that's because we have to name it based upon what they gave us. So we see here the styles.css. We need to come here and change this to styles.css. And now we see the pink. Now we know that this page is linked. So that's just a real small tip that I give my students when I'm teaching this in a class format or in a one-on-one basis. But make sure that you have that connection of linking your style sheet. Otherwise, it doesn't know that it's out there. Okay. All right. Now we can move on to this user story number 4. Okay, so I went ahead and removed the body pink. I no longer need that for our demonstration purposes here. But user story number 4 is we need to apply the following styles to the blog post card element. And so the element that we're targeting here is this very first div that we started off with, right? And freeCodeCamp is helping us out, but we see that right here with the period. How do we know in CSS to target a class or an ID or an element? And when we're talking about classes, I always tell my students this, that when we go to middle school, when we go to high school, those classes, we call them periods, right? And if we're trying to target a class on an HTML, we must start off with a period. And so that's how I've always taught students when we are discussing IDs versus classes. Okay. So classes have periods. So we want the blog post card, and then we're going to do the curly brackets. So please make note that there is a period right here. Okay, classes have periods. Number 2, or line 2 on here, it says we need to do a white background. So that's going to be background color, and we're going to set that to white. Okay, now we do want to make sure that we put semicolons on here. I'm going to get rid of the index card just to make this a little more readable for you all. Next, we need rounded corners. And so that gets into border radius. It doesn't tell us how much to do. And so we're just going to do border radius. We're going to set that to, we'll do 20 pixels. Okay. Now we're not going to see anything quite yet. This photo's kind of taken up some of the real estate here. For this width, it says it's up to our choice. Let's go ahead and utilize 350 pixels. So we'll do width, we'll do 350 pixels. Okay. And again, I can put a space in here. Next, it wants us to do the text alignment. It's going to be our choice. We can do text align center. So that's what we'll type in here, text align. Okay. And we should be able to see what's going on here. We did get the width here. Let me go ahead and move my circle photo here. Notice that no longer, if I comment this out here, the width, I'll just scroll back down, it's taking up the full space right now. Okay. But once we define a width, it's saying, hey, we are restricted to this. Now, the image is definitely blown out of proportion here. We're going to fix this, it looks like, in the next user story. So let's go ahead and move on to user story number 5 of designing a blog post card. It says that the post image element should be styled so that the image fills the card's entire width and then has a bottom border. All right. So let's see what we have to do for it. It is helping us out here with providing us with what do we put into the CS. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and grab this. It's a class that we created. It's called post image. And then I'm going to do the curly brackets. The first thing is it says the width. So I'm going to do the width. It needs to take up 100% of the usable space. Next on here, it says we need to have a border bottom, and we're going to do the following for it. So we're going to do border bottom. Notice that there's a hyphen there. And then we're going to do 5 pixels solid, and the color will do hashtag 333. And that did add a nice little line here at the bottom. Again, if we wanted to see this, we could get rid of the hashtag 333 and yellow, and it would do the same thing. So I think it looks a little nicer with the hashtag 333. User story number 6, it says the post content element should be styled so that the padding is inside of the card. Really, all it's wanting us to do for this one is we're going to do the post content, make sure that we're adding that period for the class. And then we're going to go ahead and do padding, and we'll do 20 pixels all around. Okay. And that's going to put a little bit of a buffer on the inside of our post content element. Okay, I believe that satisfies user story number 6. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, so user story number 7, it says that we have to target the post title and the post excerpt elements. And we want to have a text color other than the default, and then we want to add margins to all sides. So let's go ahead and see what we have to do for it. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to copy this right here where the post title, go ahead and grab it, and I'm going to bring it over here. So this is the class that I'm going to target. It's the title. Let's go ahead and change the color of the text, and we're going to use that same color that we used before, which is the hashtag 333. So that's how we're going to target the H2 that we see right here for the post title. Again, if we want, we can double check this to make sure that it is right by adding something that's very contrasty. But again, the hashtag 333 should work out well for our needs. Next on here, I'm going to change the color of the post excerpt, and I'm going to give it something a little different as well. I want to first add the color. Let's do yellow for right now to make sure that it is changing. Great. Now let's go ahead and add our next color. We'll do hashtag 667, and that gives it a little bit of a light gray there for us. Okay, now it did say that it wants margins on this and says all around on all sides that it can be changed. And maybe for this, we can do margins here. And this is going to be attacking all of them. And maybe on the top, I want 0. On the right, I want 0. On the bottom, I will do 10 pixels. And then on the left-hand side, I'll do 0. So that should help out with the margins. And let's go ahead and do almost the exact same thing here for the post excerpt. So I'll do margin here, and let's set the top and bottom to be 0, but on the sides, let's go ahead and do 20 pixels. There you go. You can see that it shrunk up just a little, and that's going to work perfect for our needs. Okay. So just notice that on the margin up here, I have 4 numbers, right? And the reason why I have 4 numbers is I'm going from the top, okay, and then it goes to the right, okay, just like on a clock, and then it goes down and then to the left, and that's how it's read. So 0 for the top, 0 for the right, down is the 10 pixels, and then to the left is 0 pixels, okay? Now these ones down here, they have 2, right? The first number is top and bottom are both 0. And then the left and right are equating for 20 pixels. So that's how we would read that, okay? And I believe that satisfies user story number 7. Let's go ahead and move on to our next user story. Okay, so user story number 8, it says that the read more element should be styled more like a button. The text color needs to be something other than default. We need to change the background color. We need to put margins on all the sides, padding on all the sides, and add rounded corners. And then this thing right here, which is the display property, it needs to be set to inline block. And then the hover effect needs to change its background color. So let's do a couple things here for this one. We're just going to take it step by step. Go ahead and copy the read more to include the period. And so I went ahead and did that. And then I have the curly brackets here. The very first thing that I'm going to do on here is the text color. It says it wants it other than default. And so I'm going to change this to white. So we can change color of the text by just doing this, color. And then we can type in white, okay? Put the semicolon in there. Notice that we can't see it anymore. Let's add a background color. So background color, let's go ahead and change that to the hashtag 333. And that's looking okay so far, but I think we can do a whole lot better. And we can get rid of the underline by attacking the text decoration, and we can set that to none, and that should remove the underline. Next on here, we want to add margins to all the sides, and we can do something like maybe a margin top, and we can set that to 10 pixels, but notice that it's not moving. And it's not moving because by default, the display of an anchor tag is set to inline, which means that it doesn't get any kind of adjustments on the top and bottom. So that's why it's telling us to do the display. We want to set that to inline block. It's like the best of both worlds, where that it's going to act like an inline element, but it allows us to put the padding and margins on there. Let's go ahead and add some padding on here, and we're going to do, let's do 10 pixels on the top and bottom, and then 15 pixels on the left and right. So do padding, and we're going to do top and bottom, we'll do 10 pixels. And next on here is the 15 pixels, and then we'll put the semicolon in there. And now it looks more like a button. And below the display here, so we can actually see it without breaking it, we'll do the border radius, right? And we'll set that to 5 pixels. And I believe that does look like the button. I did want to address and I don't know if it talked about the overflow on here before we test things out, because notice that the corners are not rounded on the image itself, okay? And that is due to the picture's just overgrowing the parent here. And we can, on the blog post card, we can come over here and do overflow, and then we can clip. And then we should get those rounded corners for the image that we see there, okay? So hopefully all of this made some sense. So let's go ahead and take a look at our test. Again, this is my first time running through it. We may get them all or we may not. Let's go ahead and check. Okay, so we didn't get the screen with the confetti, so we missed something here. And we totally blew by, or I totally blew by, the hover effect. Let's go ahead and knock that one out as well. And this is a real simple one to fix. Down here, we're going to get into the pseudo class. We're going to do read more. We're going to hit the colon, and then we're going to type in hover, okay? So now we're only editing properties under the hover pseudo class. So if I hover my mouse over, let's go ahead and change the background color, and we're going to set that to #555. That should be that nice gray. Let's go ahead and test that out. Now, if I hover over this, we do in fact see the gray. All right. So let's go ahead and now send this to testing. And there we go. There's that confetti that I was hoping to see. So like I said, sometimes I get too excited and I need to readjust, read what the test is looking for, and then try to fix it. Okay, so hopefully you enjoyed this lesson and you learned a few things coming along with the video. Again, I can't thank you enough for watching. Please subscribe, like the video, help us out, and we'll see you on the next video. Take care.